JoshCast, dun, 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 dun. Oh, it's the podcast that will probably dun, 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 not die. I say that because I don't want to say will not die, dun, 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 dun. Because if I say that, then I'm afraid that I am tempting fate, dun, 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 to do something bad to me, dun, 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 dun. JoshCast, dun, 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 yeah. JoshCast, dun, 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 yeah. All right, so Hanukkah's coming up, and whenever Jewish holidays come along, people will ask me questions about the culture and the religion of Judaism, and I usually panic immediately because I don't always know the answers to that. And I read about Hanukkah on Wikipedia, which makes me a Reformed Jew, and I thought I would maybe I thought it would be fun, instead of doing a drunk history, we'll do a sober history by Joshua Snyder of the history of Hanukkah. And this is going to be me recollecting the history as best I can, in a manner that's probably too close to how Eddie Izzard would deconstruct a bit. And we will go from there. So this took place a long time ago. It was before AOL, and I think the Jews were conquered. They were already conquered by, I believe, the Romans, and I think there were other people who wanted to come in and conquer them, and some of the Jews said, no, we prefer being conquered by the Romans. Which feels quintessentially Jewish to me. That's no. We would prefer we choose who's going to conquer us. Okay, you can't just come in here and conquer us. No. We've already been conquered. And but then I remember, I don't think that might not be right. Then I remember reading that that Rome had wanted the Jews to basically convert to Hellenistic Judaism, which is Judaism in which everyone's named Helen. Kidding! But Hellenistic Judaism was basically forcing the Jews to assimilate and adapt to Roman culture. And Judah Maccabee said, no, we have to retain our traditions. We need to retain the purity of the traditions. So in a way, he was kind of the extremist of the time. And so Judah Maccabee and the other Maccabees, I don't know how many I don't know how many Maccabees there were. I want to say a baker's dozen, probably more. But Judah Maccabee said, no, we're gonna rise up against this. And Judah Maccabee's friend Bill said, I think the odds are against us and the situation is grim. And then Judah said, are you quoting from Star Trek Generations? And Bill said, yeah, inadvertently, I didn't mean to. But they created an army. They built an army, and it was an army of Jews. It was a Jew army, a Jumi. And they proceeded to overthrow something or someone. I don't know if it was the Romans. I think it was not the Romans. See, this is where I get confused. I feel like it was the other people who were not the Romans who said, we want to conquer you. And so then they overthrow those people. And there was like, yay, we did it. We overthrew them. And let's go into the temple and do our Jew thing. And they went into the temple and they only had enough lamplight for one night. And they lit the candle and it ended up lasting for 8. And they went, this is a miracle, and that's where God intervenes in the story, apparently, which I find fascinating. There's a whole battle, there's wars, there's conquering, and all of that, but God is like, you know what? I'm going to give these guys a little bit of illumination. I'm going to take care of the bill for 8 days. I got it, guys. I got this, guys. And it always amazed me that, God went from creating the entire universe to illuminating a room for a few extra nights, and maybe God was trying to step back gradually, and he's like, no, I've got to let my people, I've got to let my children stand on their own 2 feet. But at the same time, I don't want them to be in a dark room. That's too much. That's too much. Listen, I may be the Old Testament God, but I'm not cruel. They need to see what they're doing. When they're davening, you shouldn't daven in pure darkness. No one wants darkened davening. That's just not something you want. Transition. I decided not to apply for the college market. In other words, to audition to perform in front of colleges, which I think, in some ways, I feel free by this. Because now, the college market, you have to, as a comedian, I would have to be very clean. And now I'm free to talk about whatever I want. I can talk about poop and pee. Oh, I've been waiting 4 years to say poop and pee and poop. But not that I don't know. I don't want to get too dirty, but I think what I do want to talk about is the severe injustices and fear and terror that's coming into the world right now. Namely, I'm looking at the cabinet picks, the people that Trump is picking people to lead the country, and they're people who have values, have a value system that is different from mine. It's not better, it's not worse, it's different. They value money, for instance, over breathing on the planet. And that's, what? Who's to judge? Me. I'm to judge. That's, yes. There's this whole thing. Climate change isn't real. There's no way that we can prove that climate change is happening. There's no way that we can prove that climate change is happening. A bunch of nerds are saying it's happening. Nerds! Donald. Nerds! I was one of those nerds. We double check our work because many of us are obsessive compulsive. We double check our work, and we have this sense of altruism that comes supposedly because many nerds are gifted and talented, and they have this strong sense of justice and wanting to do right and wanting to make the world a better place. So it's yes, that's all there is to it, and I'm just getting frustrated now and not using my words. Use your word things, Josh. Use your word things. I'd rather they just say, yes, we do believe that climate change is. This is the one thing I was reading about the potential Secretary of State, the Exxon Valdez CEO, who has quoted as saying, yes, climate change is man-made, but too fucking bad. We need oil. We're going to be using oil for a long time. And, I don't necessarily agree with that, but at least he's saying, yes, climate change is real. At least there's that. I mean, at least he's admitting it. I mean, that, I feel like I can work with that. But when people are like, oh, no, what does science know? As I get into my helicopter, yeah, that's the other thing, is that I don't like the picking and choosing the science, what science to pick and what science not to pick. If you don't believe in climate, I don't believe in climate change. Excuse me while I get into this helicopter that was apparently somebody prayed for it and it appeared. That's not how it works. You either go with science or you don't go with science. I was thinking about my grandparents and how I feel like I never had big theological discussions with my grandparents, but I feel like if I asked them, hey, do you believe in God? They'd go, yeah, sure. Well, yeah. They wouldn't say yes, they'd say yeah. And I think the difference between yes and yeah is yes is I definitely believe, and yeah is, when are we eating? That's the difference. And I feel like they would be, but I feel like both, they're older, well, they're dead now, but they're a generation older than Trump. And they would have been saying, yeah, climate change is real. Because when the scientists say climate change is real, well, all right, yeah, sure. You did the work. Good for you. I trust you. Transition. I'm not sure where to go from here. I feel the usual frustration that I feel. Sugar. I'm addicted to sugar, and I want to eat sugar. But I really had a bad diarrhea yesterday. This is what I get to talk about now that I'm not worried about the college market. Is my diarrhea, my IBS. Although one person said, "Is it true that you have IBS?" He said, "Is because I talk about having IBS on stage. Because if it's one thing I want, it's success as a comedian." And he said, and he actually said, "Do you really have that?" And I love whenever I get that question. Do you really have IBS? Because it's implying that I don't really have IBS, and I'm just pretending to have IBS for the sake of the laugh. That I'm home coming up with a character, and it's like, what kind of comedic persona am I going to have? I know I will be 100% me, except I have IBS, and I sit there and eat ice cream and think this is going to be hysterical. This is the end of the podcast. The end of the podcast. And the children sing and the children play. This is the end of the podcast.